So I've been slacking on videos for the last year. I got probably 10 videos I need to get edited and get posted, but I'm trying to make a comeback for the YouTube. I've just been very busy. Between us doing the Crown Vic racing, building now 3 of those cars, I got 1 more to build for next year. Between drifting and just all the events, like life has been wild, been the best year I've probably ever had, but been busy. So I haven't done a lot of videos. So it's almost off season, but we're jumping right back in a month, January 18th, doing another competition. Just can't get away from it. I have been breaking this thing all year and I haven't made any videos on it. I just haven't had time. Keep breaking differentials. Thought I had that solved with some really good parts. Still, these things like to crack right here. They like to split the whole case. So honestly, I might talk to my buddy Josiah at FDF and see if we can come up with a, I got the brace, but it would be nice to have a brace that attached to the back also around these perimeter of these bolts. That could probably help solve it because it's all, the pinion's in the back and it's always trying to push it out. So if we can like lock this case down, might be better. But this time, I actually broke my face-plated transmission. Second gear, gone. Went to Drift Symphony 2, T-Pain's event in Georgia. First lap out, I went straight, went to second, boom, it just popped. So actually I'm gonna take, in this video, we're gonna go ahead and get this trans out. We're gonna get the Z06 trans that I had in it at the beginning of the year that I let my son drive and he tried to go to second and it wouldn't go and he just kept trying to force it without pushing the clutch. He's learning. So it ate that synchronizer up. It actually broke the synchronizer hub ring. So I got all that stuff situated. But this trans has a hardened output shaft, which I want to take apart and put in the other trans just because, trying to make this thing as strong as I can. But let's jump in. I'm gonna get this thing pulled apart and then we'll bust the transmission apart, get the parts we need out of it. And we're gonna send off the broken T56 gear, the second gear that's broken this trans. I got another one I ordered. We're gonna send it off, have it face plated, and I'm gonna build the trans out of this one for another build. So let's get to work. All right, got the diff out, transmission's almost out. So this is how I get it out. As you can see, I put a piece of aluminum in and got rid of the big hump that hangs down because I was breaking the differential so much. You can't get that off the output shaft with that big hump that's right here. So I got rid of that. I don't even drop the subframe to get the trans and stuff out. So I pull the diff off. I turn the transmission sideways and it has just enough room to come back. But I figured I'd go ahead and drain the transmission now. And that stuff looks pink because that's red line gear oil. It's like the shockproof stuff. But when I pulled the plug, got a few teeth that come off. So no, second gear is destroyed. So one thing I think I'm gonna start doing next year is I'm gonna start, I guess, jacking my car up, letting the wheels spin, get some heat in everything. Cause I think it was pretty cold at Lanier during the T-Pain event. And I just went straight out there. The car warmed up because I have an electric water pump. So I don't even turn the water pump on until it gets to 180 degrees. So the car warms up super fast, but the differential and trans, they stay pretty cold. And cold, hard metal and the shock just fractures it. So I think I'm gonna start letting my stuff warm up, get up to temp, and that might help. In theory, it seems like it would help. So, yeah, deleted second gear. As you can see, I don't run 5th or 6th gear, just deleted those. Used counter shaft extension just to be able to run reverse. And pretty much my reverse is where 5th gear used to be. So, yeah. When I get in there, I'll show you how I managed to do that. Yep, she's pretty bad. But I got new counter shaft for Z06, the 297 differential or gear ratio, new second gear. What actually happened to the Z06 trans that is right here, it broke some teeth off too, because this ring, these things are very, very expensive. Luckily, I have a ton of parts. Let me see if I can see where it's split. Right there. There's a crack. You can kind of slightly see it right there. So what was actually happening was as it was pushing, this thing's tapered, and as it was pushing down, that crack was spreading and it wasn't actually letting the synchro engage. So I'm gonna get this thing busted on apart, get all the gears out, box up what I need to send off to get repaired, and get the 06 trans built. All right, so this has been a debacle. Oh my Lord. So the tool I got for pulling fifth and sixth driven gear off is this, and I had to make this a long time ago, but it started cracking in these corners. And yeah, that is not working. Thing is, these things are normally, I mean, they're pressed on from the factory. Let's see, where's that? They're pressed on from the factory, but what happens is, like lugging the car down in fifth and sixth gear, it kind of, if you ever get a car and you're in fifth and sixth and you just kind of hear some drivetrain chatter at low RPMs, probably because this is splines are kind of wore. But like you'll see on this one, this is an old one, it just slides right on the splines. Typically they come right off. I have had a few that kind of pop off pretty easy with this, but I put a hardened shaft from Texas Drivetrain Performance in this, and they actually machined the shaft a little oversized to account for like a worn gear. That way it go on kind of snug. That thing sucked. So you can see here on this one, you can see the teeth wore. That's usually what happens, and it just lets the gear get real sloppy. This is another Corvette shaft. It's in pretty good shape, but it has enough wear to where it pops right off. So I had to make this contraption. I used my Harbor Freight long reach puller, and it wouldn't reach because the Corvette shaft's so long. So I took this 1.5" DOM tubing. I think it's like 095 wall. I took an old puller and just welded some stuff up. I took my Harbor Freight puller and just used the pins that comes with it, pinned it. Worked pretty good. The only problem is this is a very, very brittle gear because it's so hard. I could not, it just kept breaking teeth off, which I don't need it because I don't have fifth or sixth gear because I deleted them. This is just in here as a spacer for the reverse gear and synchronizer assembly. So what I ended up having to do, let me turn this. I had to take a cutoff wheel, go in there and just cut the gear enough down to the shaft, and I run a chisel in and it fractures the gear. It only fractures it up to where you cut, but it was just enough to spread this. Put a hose clamp on just to squeeze it. It was popping teeth off, but it's moving now. So I'm gonna go ahead and keep on rolling and get this thing off. This has been like a 2-hour ordeal just trying to get this off. So let's wind her off. Oh man, that sucks. That you can see cut through, fractured, and it was still super tight. So obviously they machined that shaft to where it even fits the slip point pretty tight. But you can see, it just barely touched the shaft, didn't hurt it. The reason I'm even pulling this apart, because I'm gonna use these gears that are in this, I'm gonna send it off, get second gear fixed, have that face-plated gear set for another trans, and I really want this hardened output shaft to put in the 06 trans with all the other parts. So this is what we got. Second gear destroyed. Knocked every tooth off the counter shaft. Started to chew up at the main gear. Sounds like gravel. Even, that kind of sucks. Which I gotta replace the whole counter shaft anyway. The piece, that's why I like to try to cut it off as soon as possible, because this thing just starts to chew on teeth from the gear. So that fourth gear, it's got 2 bad spots in it there, another one there. I just hope, which it doesn't matter there either, because I have to have, because I'm using an F-body case for another build, and input shaft's different anyway, so I'm going to have the input shaft face plated along with a whole nother second gear, and then the cluster shaft has to be clearanced. I think they have to shave a little bit off the surface there to be able to clear the face plates. But it kind of sucks. As long as all these other gears are fine, we should be good. But yeah, this is a face-plated trans that I built. I'll show you what I mean by deleted 5th and 6th gear. And right now, reverse is where 5th gear used to be, because you can look in there. This rail here is for reverse. So I took and whacked it off. And 5th and 6th gear all run through the same shift rail. This right here is your shift rail for your 1st through 4th, and it gets hooked up to this piece that hooks directly to the shifter. So what it does is this rail turns, and this thing swings out. If you need reverse, this thing would spin more over to where the reverse lever would be. But what I done was, since I don't have 5th and 6th, I was looking and I was like, I just took and cut me some spacers from like Home Depot in between there, because these are supposed to be open where this whole rail can slide in and out of this rail. So I just locked that rail together, and now when I go to 5th, it actually pushes up on the reverse synchronizer and makes it go into reverse. Got a Tick Performance 1st and 2nd gear fork, just because I didn't take no chances of like breaking or bending a fork. I put a steel fork for 3rd and 4th. Well, get this thing tore the rest of the way apart so I can get my counter shaft, get the Z06 trans built, and get that thing back together. All right, so I went by the car wash and I got a parts cleaner. I cleaned everything, but I wanted to get the residue off. So I took it to the car wash, pressure washed it, aluminum brightener, just try to make it look nice. So it looks pretty new now. All the metal's gone. I wanted to show you, this is like your gates for your shifter. So if you look at it, you can see 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and where 5th should be, that's my reverse now. I took and welded 6th gear closed and reversed, because this right here is your reverse gate. So I got a wall built there, and like I was showing you on the shift rails being locked, this just makes everything, because if I didn't weld this up, you would still be able to go to 6th gear, and there's just nothing there, it wouldn't do nothing. So I wanted it to feel more like a traditional 4-speed, I guess you can say. There's face-plated gears I'm gonna try to build for another car. Got my bearings pressed on my new counter shaft. Guess it's time to get this thing throwed together. I got this trans. This is that's my buddy Nicholas Abbott's old trans that he exploded. Basically, the case is probably the only thing that survived that whole ordeal. This thing was grenaded. Even the case has some nicks in it I'm kind of questioning. But worst case, I'm gonna put them face-plated gears inside this trans and make it a 4-speed, and maybe have another spare for another car. But this is transmission out of the Corvette currently. I will say that red line transmission fluid or gear oil is good stuff. It is very tacky and it sticks to everything, and it is hard to get off of parts. Like I took and brake cleaned this, and it still got the residue. So this stuff doesn't come off. It sticks like it says it does. Here's a normal gate that I'll probably modify for the other trans. But get this thing put together. I want to get this thing done, get the car back to going. Yeah, let's throw it together. So I didn't get no footage of me reassembling it. I just kind of got it knocked out because I wanted to get the car back together this weekend. And I had a little issue with the counter shaft extension going into the counter shaft. I usually use parts from Texas Drivetrain Performance. A lot of times their parts are from AMP transmissions, which they have really good parts. But this one counter shaft I got for, it's the cluster gear. It's this piece right here. This is one out of one of my friend's cars that destroyed 4th gear. This is the one out of my Z06 trans that destroyed 2nd gear. And I don't know if I showed you before, but this is the 2nd gear that was messed up. So I put it in, put transmission together, bearings on, all the clearances set, and I went to install the extension housing for reverse gear, and it would not drop down into the cluster shaft. So I'm like, man, I do not want to take this transmission back apart. You know, I literally only need that extension housing for reverse, which I'll show you what that is. So it's this piece right here. This holds your 5th and 6th gear, but it uses this along with the tail shaft, which is right here, to engage reverse. So this literally drops in to the cluster shaft right here. And it's a precise machine fit, and it fits really good. But mine, I had to tap it in just a little bit to get it to completely seat so I can get the rear tail housing on. And I noticed, I'll show you in this video, the gears are actually coming really close and actually touching on the reverse actual gear that goes into on the main shaft. So I took the end, these ends right here, the square part right there, I kind of clearanced it with a little grinder, just enough to where it would slide down freely, but it's not like it's going to allow it to go side to side because you got this bearing that goes into the rear case. So just clearancing those little squares a little bit to be able to drop down in completely eliminated that problem. So I was in here until like 7 o'clock Sunday night getting that done. Well, guess I didn't read the fine print. It even tells you to clearance the cluster as needed. Well, I did that. I don't feel so bad about it anymore. But I got the car back together and put it in, and I put my mufflers back on. I'll drop a link in the description down below where I've done a set of Z06 C6 mufflers on this thing with the valves, which I don't have the valves hooked up yet, but I modified these mufflers, which is a popular mod between like the Grand Sport and Z06 Corvette guys, where you gut the mufflers, or you pretty much cut the mufflers open and you weld a pipe in place where the perforated holes are. But you see, I got the valves, I clocked them a different way so they'd fit with the C5 bumper. But I actually run a full C6 headers and X pipe back to these mufflers. I had to modify my trans brace a little bit, but I'll drop a video where I actually done that whole install. But yeah, car's done. I just got to put my wheels on. I got to finish putting the shifter assembly back together. But I'm gonna redo the clutch setup in this thing. It's got a Tick Performance master cylinder kit because the stock slave master is known to be terrible. But what I'm gonna actually do is, since I'm breaking so many transmission differentials, I got this tilting flow control valve, clutch delay valve, I guess you can call it. And it's gonna slow down the initial shock of doing like a clutch kick. It's gonna allow the clutch to slip just a little bit, which I think that's not gonna be a bad thing. But one thing, I've gotten used to it, is people that hop in my car and just like push the clutch would be like, man, that is a hard clutch. So what Tick does is they use this Tilton master cylinder with their kit. And this is the one I've just bought from Summit to give a try. But the factory one that they give you with their kit is a 7/8, and it allows the clutch to disengage a lot quicker because it's moving way more fluid and in a shorter distance. But having the bigger bore on the master cylinder makes the pedal way harder. So I've gotten used to it, but clutch kicks and just pushing the clutch in general wears your leg out over the weekend. So I'm going from it's like a 0.875 is what's in the car now, down to this one. This is in the middle of a 7/8 and a 3/4. This one comes out to like a 0.812, I think. So it's like 100% in the middle of a 3/4 and a 7/8. So I feel I could get away with putting a 3/4 back in it and making it work. Because usually when I'm driving, I usually short shift a second and then like throw it in when I'm drifting anyway. I'm not really like running up first gear wide open. But I figured I would give this a try, 13/16, and just see if it makes a big difference in pedal feel and if it'll still shift good. I think the clutch delay valve, flow control valve, whatever you want to call it, is going to help a lot. So The little thing's pretty pricey. This thing was like $170 just for this little piece. But nice thing about this is there's another one on the market that you have to run another line to. This one's nice and small and it screws right into the master cylinder. Because originally I thought I was going to have to use a coupler, screw a fitting inside the master, adapt this to it. But inside the master is actually got the right seat for it, so works perfect. Even in their instructions, they don't say it online, but even in the instructions, it tells you it'll screw right into the master cylinder. So that's gonna be the next thing I get done in this car. But let's fire this thing up and let you hear what it sounds like. So I love the way this car sounds with these mufflers on it, but they're pretty heavy. And I took them back off. I had them all on at the beginning of the year, but I took them back off the last time I broke the differential just because I was like out of time and trying to align these things and get them back on. I didn't feel like dealing with it. So I put my turn downs back on that just slide right in the pipe. But the last event at the nighttime event, during the nighttime runs, I was shooting major fireballs under the car, and it's like right beside the gas tank. So I'm like, yeah, I'd rather see the flames come out the back of the car. So I took the time to put them back on, and I'm actually happy I did. But for 2025, I'm hoping to be getting a set of the Concept 841 headers to put on this thing. This thing will sound sick with those on it. So I'm looking forward to that. Fingers crossed that happens, because that'd be sick. But I don't know, I think we're gonna leave this one off here. And cars, I got an event 3 weeks from now. So it's gonna be a competition event, a track I've never been to. I haven't done a whole lot of recording this year on this car and doing my events. My driving has progressed a ton this year. So I'm very excited for 2025, come out swinging. But yeah, I guess that's gonna do it for this one. I appreciate you watching. We'll see you in the next one.